So we're here with Caroline Bourke and we're talking about Quizlet. So I want to ask Caroline, because Caroline, I believe, is a fan. How long ago did you first come across Quizlet and what made you interested?
So I first started using it last year in about term 2,
Yep.
and then even tried it in term 3 when we were in lockdown. So that was interesting. But I first got into it from a recommendation from a colleague.
Yep.
Like you said, at first, sometimes when you hear someone else explain something, you can be a bit hesitant to use it yourself because you don't know how it's going to work in the classroom.
Yeah.
So I thought it seemed really too confusing, and I actually did put off using it for a while.
Okay.
But once I decided to give it a go, I've loved it ever since. I use it quite a lot with my classes.
So I don't know anything about Quizlet either, but I've just watched that demo. And so to me, it seems like there's a way, like you obviously set the questions, but there's a way it combines collaboration and a team and competition against other teams, and then that brings engagement and learning. So can you just briefly explain why you're so impressed, what happens in the classroom once you do this?
I guess the main thing that stands out to me when you use it is like every single student in the classroom is engaged, regardless of their ability.
Wow.
Particularly, I've noticed that in my Year 7 class, we have mixed ability stage 4 classes and the spread is huge. But when I use a Quizlet, it pairs them up with random teams, so they're in completely mixed groups, but every single student is working together as a team. So it brings out that competitive side in them, but because they have to work together as a team to get the answers, they can't just guess or they'll go back to 0. So to get the best score, they have to communicate, they have to collaborate, solve the problems together. So I found it a lot better than other, Kahoots or other things where it's more of students end up just guessing if they're not quite sure, whereas this one they don't guess.
You're using this in a mathematics context?
Yes, yeah.
So give us an example of a Year 7 question. Or is it a set of questions, or what's that look like?
Yeah, so it's a set of questions. So I did one yesterday with Year 7 for fractions. Do you want me to just show you the types of questions that I used?
Yeah, sure. So you can
screen.
share your screen again.
I put together a set of questions. I'll show you an example.
What fraction of the shape is shaded? Give you
This one here.
Is this within Quizlet?
Yeah, so you can build it within Quizlet. There are some that are already pre-made. You can, just like Kahoot, you could search one up and find one, but I tend to make them myself because I want them to match the syllabus that we've been studying. So I had a range of questions, just very basic ones from simplifying all the way down to some really high kind of problem-solving questions, worded problems, something like this. So giving them a set of fractions and asking which is the largest or the smallest. So it was a range of problems on what we'd been doing, and so I think I ended up making 51 questions. It will randomly generate 12 of them to use at a time, which means that we can play a couple of rounds. I think we ended up playing it for almost half an hour.
So each group gets the same randomly generated 12 questions?
Yes, yeah. Each group will be working on the same set at the same time, but then when I replay it, it should give them a new set of 12 or random out of them.
How do you avoid, in mathematics, right? So you can have some kids who just know what the answer is because they've either remembered the routine or they understand what's going on, and you have other kids who are in the dark. So how do you avoid just having the one kid in a group of 3? Is it a group of 3?
Normally 4 to 3, but yeah, it depends. 4 to 3
so
in a group.
How do you avoid just the one person doing all the work in the group?
Yeah, well, in my Year 7s, I did notice that at first, the first couple of times that we played it, because we had those really high achievers and a lot of them were competitive, and I would have them running, across the 3 computers. They knew the answer and they were trying to find who has it rather than talking to their teammates. So that just came from me kind of reminding them of the purpose that we're doing it and that I want everyone to be learning. And I have a bit of a leaderboard going on the whiteboard as we play it. And so whoever's on the leaderboard gets merits, but I've made it clear they're only on the leaderboard if I can see that everyone was collaborating as they were doing the question. So I just walk around the room and make sure they're all having a go, which they tend to do.
Are the students, other groups sitting together?
Yes, so each time you play a new round, you can shuffle the teams. I do that so they work with new people and they go and find each other in the room and grab a seat with those 3 or 4 students.
Do you try to put different abilities, like mixed abilities in each group? Like, do you try and orchestrate that, or is it a random generation of groups?
I use random. I think that the website has the ability for you to assign the teams. I've never used it that way. I prefer to use, because I do often have them slightly grouped in ability already. So I like to use this activity as an opportunity for them to mingle with other students.
So each student needs to get the correct answer for the team to get the tip?
So yeah, the way it works is they'll all see the same question. So they'll all be solving the same problem, but only one of them will have the correct answer on their screen. So if they think the answer is 2/3 and they don't have 2/3 on their screen, they have to say, I think it's 2/3. Does anyone have 2/3? And then if someone else thinks, I think it's 1/3, they have to decide which one it will be. Because they all see different answers on their screen. So only one of them will have the correct answer to click.
Then you obviously encourage discussion as to justification as to why this is the right answer and why this is not the right answer.
Yeah, and if they go back to 0, so if they get one wrong, they go back to 0. And it's the first group to get 12 correct, and there's like a little leaderboard that you project up on the screen. So if they get one wrong and they go back to 0, it will still get them to work through the same 12 questions.
Right.
So if I see a group gets one wrong, I'll go over and help them. And when that same question comes back up, I'll, try and ask them to be a bit more careful and see if they can figure it out the second time. So they get the opportunity to redo the questions that they get wrong.
Right. Okay. You said that every time you use Quizlet, everyone's engaged.
Yeah, I used it on the last lesson.
That's a big
of
statement.
Term 2, and every single year 9 student was engaged right up until the last lesson, and I was just amazed. It was 5 minutes to go and they were like, can we do another round? Can we do another round? So they love it, and it's just, very interesting to see how engaged they get.
So when you look at it, when you analyse this, yes, you can say, well, it's competition, everyone loves competition, but really what you're doing is you're setting up a reason for these kids to understand what's going on and to get the right answer.
Yeah.
Are you? You're creating a need for them to learn and work through these questions.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, that's very cool. This is great because I just want to provide an incentive for other teachers to go, oh, okay, this is worthwhile checking out.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you would say? Let's say I'm not that great with technology, Caroline.
I guess the other thing that I found really good is after a bit of practice, I've learned how quick they are to make. So in comparison to, say, making Kahoots or clickers or other similar activities, these ones, I find them really quick to make.
Right.
I ended up getting a paid subscription because I like it so much. So I make them for other people in the department and share them around.
What's the difference between paid and free?
The main difference that I noticed, I can paste images. I think if you just have a free subscription, you can't put images into your questions.
Right.
So I can literally just copy and paste it in an image and it straight away goes into the question.
Oh, and
so it's very quick.
So you can use an image as a basis for a question.
Yeah, some of them will just be typed, but a lot of them, say for fractions, I wanted images. I'll just screen clip an image from a worksheet or a textbook, put them in there. So I can you could just do it as an alternative to a textbook exercise.
You also mentioned that you made some Quizlets for other members of your faculty. Can that only occur on a paid subscription?
No, others could make them. It's just if they want to add images.
So a department could get together and say, right, let's collaborate here and let's all make up half a dozen Quizlets, but complementary to each other. So that's a way of cutting down the workload. Is that?
Yeah, definitely. These can be used year after year. I'll make them and they go in the program, and they also can be used by the students for independent study later on. So if my year 7s are studying for fractions, these also now just work as flashcards. They can actually just go and access them as a set of flashcards.
So they just log in, I suppose they have a Quizlet account, do they? And they can just log in and
They
revisit?
don't have to have an account. I can share the link with them and anyone can see it. They don't have to log in or anything.
And so when you go into the link, you can access your past Quizlets that you've seen, that your teachers provided you as a student.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Is there anything else you would say to a tentative teacher who hasn't dived into the Quizlet world yet?
I don't know, just give it a crack. I would suggest using it at the end of the lesson because in my experience, they get very excited, very noisy, and then it's not to me a lesson starter if you want to then calm them down and do a worksheet. I'd use it as an end of lesson activity. I love to do it at the end of a topic or the end of a term as kind of consolidation.
And dare I say, perhaps an incentive for excellent behaviour during the first half of the lesson.
Yeah, that's right. I always tell them
Not
it's
that we
coming at
would
the
do
end of
that.
the lesson and they're on their best behaviour.
All right. Look, I think we might leave it there, Caroline. That's fantastic. Thanks for sharing that. Thanks for watching. And hopefully we'll have a lot more teachers diving into the universe called Quizlet.